Colorado's governor is ready to hand Tina Peters a get-out-of-jail-free card if she's willing to do the one thing she hasn't done yet: show remorse for her crime of leading a breach of Colorado's voting systems. Peters and President Trump, of course, are not one bit sorry. They say Peters is a political prisoner, that her 9-year sentence is unfair, and that Colorado is going to be punished until she's free. Democratic Governor Polis made it pretty clear to me late this afternoon the only thing standing between Tina Peters and her freedom is her showing remorse. Has your view of whether Tina Peters deserved clemency changed over time, or are people just interpreting your words differently?
This one has always stood out to me, Kyle, as a very long sentence. Just to put things in perspective, we have 18,000 or so prisoners. We cannot find any other nonviolent first-time offenders over 70 in our entire system. So I haven't seen a single one. So on its face, this would be a good applicant. Now you have to put on top of that, of course, the impact of the crime, the notoriety of the crime, what she actually did.
Tina Peters shows no remorse, takes no accountability or responsibility. Does that matter?
Yes, that is a very important part. So what she would have to show, in any type of successful clemency application would be appropriate contrition, apology. That's the kind of thing that I would be looking for. I've looked for it in other cases. It's not the only thing, Kyle. There's also sentencing disparities. That's one of the issues here. Age and health are a factor. It was cited in a few of the ones you looked at. But absolutely, how an inmate plans on making good with any time reduction that they receive is part of what I look at.
There are times that it seems to me like you want to give her clemency more than she wants it, right? Because if she's in, she's a martyr. And it seems to me like you've been working really hard to come up with a justification to give her clemency when she won't do so much as to say, yeah, I broke the law and I'm sorry.
I'm not looking at, is she a martyr, is she not? I'm not looking at what, you or what the president or what the Democrats say. I really just try to look at, does this, meet my standards in terms of, is there a disparate sentence? I believe there is here. Is there contrition and apology? We need to see that.
The word pardon gets thrown around, but what Governor Polis is considering here is a commutation. It's a different form of clemency that is just a shortening of Tina Peters' sentence. Polis gets a ton of requests from prisoners for commutations, and he's done it just 25 times in his 8 years in office. We analyzed every one of his commutations, and Tina Peters would stand alone in showing no remorse for what she did and taking no responsibility for the harm she caused. No other inmates have received a commutation from Polis solely for a harsh sentence, and Peters would have the shortest sentence Polis has ever commuted by more than 3 decades. What is it to get clemency in Colorado?
Very difficult.
Kyle Giddings from the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition knows very few prisoners will get a letter like this from Governor Polis. Each letter contains the same line: you have taken accountability for your actions and recognized the mistakes you have made in the past. You are remorseful and ready to advance to a new phase of life. Tina Peters defiantly defends her decision to lead a breach of Colorado's voting systems when she was the Republican clerk in Mesa County. Peters and President Trump are demanding clemency anyway. Do you think there is a message sent to people who are currently incarcerated if Tina Peters gets clemency?
Oh boy. Yeah, I think so. There are so many folks who are currently incarcerated that are doing the work to turn their lives around. We get stories and we get letters every day from people who are currently incarcerated asking for help and navigating the processes of returning home and returning to their community. Tina Peters getting clemency and jumping the line in front of all these people, especially the people that are already sitting and just waiting for a signature, sets a precedent that I just can't imagine what the impact would be on people that are currently incarcerated throughout Colorado.
Michael Clifton can imagine the impact.
I was gone for 24 and a half years.
He served decades on a 98-year sentence before receiving clemency from Governor Polis, who praised Clifton's work putting together the Pathway to Freedom program to help inmates prepare to reenter society.
I know a lot of people who are, definitely taking accountability and are contributing on the inside and, would die for an opportunity, would really, give anything for just an opportunity to live life again.
Our analysis shows the average time served by an inmate receiving a commutation from Governor Polis was 21 years. Excluding life sentences, their average sentence, 80 years. Tina Peters has served 1 year on a 9-year sentence. Polis has mentioned Peters' age and health. He has issued one commutation for age and health to an 84-year-old who was blind, deaf, suffering from dementia, and using a wheelchair. Peters is 70 years old, a cancer survivor. She had a cough in prison. Her lawyer says that's improved. And her supporters celebrated when prison video recently emerged of Peters fending off a far younger inmate, pushing the woman across the room with a hand at her neck. Peters' attorney said she didn't start that fight. The expectation that Polis is about to offer Peters clemency drew condemnation today from Colorado's Democratic leaders and the Republican district attorney who led Peters' prosecution. DA Dan Rubenstein says clemency for Peters would be a quote-unquote gross injustice to Mesa County, where Republican leaders say Peters humiliated their community and cost them a lot of money to replace their voting system. Rubenstein directly took on Polis' recent comparison between Peters' sentence and that of former Democratic State Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis, who got probation last week for attempting to influence a public servant, one of the same felony charges in Peters' conviction. Rubenstein says the difference between the cases is exactly why sentencing ranges exist. Jaquez Lewis was busted for writing fake letters of support during an ethics investigation. Peters, of course, snuck people into the state's voting systems in a failed search for election rigging.
In Ms. Peters' case, it was such a huge violation of public trust for her to have been elected to be the person specifically safeguarding the elections, and then to violate that public trust by sneaking people into the election equipment and putting our passcodes out on the internet. And this is why you should never say that everybody who commits a certain type of crime should get the exact same sentence.
Governor Polis has brushed off criticism from his fellow Democrats today, saying that clemency is his decision and his alone, which it is. Today, Attorney General Phil Weiser said it would, quote, be a grave injustice and a miscarriage of justice, dangerous for free and fair elections. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold said that Peters should not get special treatment. Griswold called the governor's latest statements on clemency shocking and worrisome. Children's Hospital Colorado has 2 weeks to tell the state Supreme Court why it stopped providing gender-affirming care to minors. The hospital paused that work earlier this year in fear of losing Medicaid funding from the feds. Parents of patients sued. Lower court said no. Now the state Supreme Court has agreed to hear the appeal. Our Jaleesa Irizarry explains.
Embrace who you are, and the fact that
Watching an old video brings new emotions for Jude.
Wow.
At 12 years old, she was no stranger to a camera.
Oh, I was so young.
In the advocacy work around youth transgender rights. At 13, Jude went to Children's Hospital Colorado True Center to receive gender-affirming care. She was quite literally a poster child for them. They even sent her a card thanking her for being part of their photo shoot.
Gender-affirming care saved my life. I don't think I would be here without it.
Now, some kids have to be. This year, Children's Hospital Colorado stopped all medical gender-affirming care for minors after the Trump administration threatened to cut Medicaid funding for any hospital that provides that kind of treatment.
They just abandoned us.
That includes Denisha Doe's daughter, Danielle. They moved here from Texas to access treatment and are now part of a lawsuit against Children's to reinstate it on the grounds of discrimination. Denisha says the lack of care has taken its toll on her daughter's mental health. She was recently hospitalized for suicidal ideations.
It's every parent's, worst nightmare. It's heartbreaking. And you just want to ensure that they are happy and they have what they need and they have the medical care they need.
Children's Hospital Colorado says they did not want to stop the care, but if they're no longer allowed to provide Medicaid services, they say they could lose their state hospital accreditation and be forced to close. A risk they believe was far too great. And a district judge agreed, denying the request. But this week, the state Supreme Court decided to take up the appeal in this case, giving the hospital a couple of weeks to explain why they stopped this care.
Because at the end of the day, gender-affirming care is between a physician, a child, and their parent.
Jude is hopeful that the state Supreme Court will decide to reinstate treatment. So is Denisha.
Yes.
For her daughter's well-being, she has to be.
And the idea of going through male puberty is her worst nightmare. So we are going to do everything in our power to ensure that she doesn't have to confront those feelings.
I was Jaleesa Irizarry reporting. Danielle says she's working to get her daughter care elsewhere, but the wait lists are long. According to the lawsuit, Children's True Center was providing care for more than 800 patients and had a 6-month wait list for appointments. We were going to be at this for a few months during the pandemic. But the fact is, you never stop giving, so we never stop going. And here we are on your 300th straight week of your Word of Thanks microgiving, having raised nearly $18 million for nonprofits across our state. This week, our 300th Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports Salud Family Health Clinics up and down the Front Range and their life-saving program with a fantastic name. Butt Savers was the idea of their docs who watched patients with possible cancer symptoms go home to save up for copays for colonoscopies and lost precious time when their cancer could have been caught early and lives saved. So Butt Savers was born and funded out of their own pockets. Think of it as like a colonoscopy scholarship to make sure that finances aren't the reason that anybody waits for a screening that could save their life. We figure Butt Savers is the perfect way to celebrate your 300 weeks of microgiving because, like Word of Thanks, it started with a few people who saw a need and decided to do something about it, to change what was within their power to change. I don't say this lightly. What they have done has saved lives, and I truly believe that what you have done has saved lives. With your support of 300 causes around Colorado, from medical care to suicide prevention to gang intervention. So, for the 300th time, let's do this together. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491. We'll send you that link to donate. Even $5 helps because it piles up in a hurry, and you know the deal. I'm never going to ask you to give to a cause I don't support myself, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. 7,500 of you have signed up to make a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You put in your info one time. Each month, your donations automatically split among all the nonprofits we feature. We expect that to add almost $50,000 for each weekly campaign.
Is it that I'm missing that would have been the cause for this mental health illness? That is when I discovered the concussions.
A grieving mother wants other parents to learn how concussions can impact kids' mental health. That's next. Chris Bianchi, snow. It's been a while.
Well, it's been a while. You might remember the last time it snowed in Denver, Colorado.
Prefer not to remember it, actually, Chris.
Yeah. Well, here's the before the game picture. Of course, last time it snowed, January the 25th, Kyle and I at the Broncos AFC title game. We all know how that went. But it will change coming up here in about 36 hours. We'll finally get some snow in Denver. Radar right now, quiet as could be. But as we look ahead to tomorrow night, a storm system will move in from the north and west. It'll bring us first some mountain snow, and that's good news. Snowpack right now statewide sitting at about 62% of where it should be for this point in the winter season. We made up some ground, kind of a little bit of that upward tick, but we need a lot more snow, and we're going to get some of that tomorrow night and especially into Friday. And that snow will be pretty steady and heavy through the mountains on Friday. I would say that mountain travel is going to be rough basically all day long. If you can travel tonight or tomorrow through the mountains, it'll be pretty rough on Friday, and I know that means ski traffic. A lot of people are going to try and catch that fresh powder, but unfortunately it will be rough. Denver, snow will start up around the morning commute on Friday with the heaviest during the morning. And in Denver, we could get trace to about 3 inches of slushy snow. North side of town closer to about a trace. Most areas probably closer to about an inch or two. Most of that snow on colder surfaces. You get into the foothills, that's where you're going to be seeing some of that more meaningful accumulation, 3 inches plus likely, and road impacts there as well. 7-day forecast, we briefly drop down with those temperatures to about 40 for a high on Friday, and then we spike right back up into the mid-60s by Sunday, 70s next week.
Drip down is when the temperatures drop and you're wearing that blue suit that Bianchi looks so good in. That's what drip down is. A call for parents to be more aware of the lasting impacts of concussions in youth sports. Hey, a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night, 6 p.m., 9 News Plus, and Next is a podcast, wherever you find those. A mother has been going to the state capitol to spark conversations about concussions, youth sports, and mental health. Our Evan Krugel has her story.
She's got some onions here and garlic here.
Spring has come early.
Yeah.
In Stella DeLongchamp's Arvada garden.
I know. Yes, very surprised.
It's a sight that makes her smile because every new sprout here carries meaning. 6 years after her 13-year-old daughter Alyssa passed away.
And it's just healing. It's a healing space that we have right here in front of our home.
Healing has not been easy, in part because of how sudden Alyssa's passing was.
So it took me a lot of years to find answers on why my daughter took her life. I did everything possible trying to figure out what is it that I'm missing that would have been the cause for this mental health illness. That is when I discovered the concussions and the link to her mental health. And when I made that connection, it was like Alyssa was right next to me.
Yay, Alyssa!
Alyssa grew up as a competitive ski racer and soccer player, suffering multiple concussions along the way. Stella says doctors believe those concussions contributed to her mental health and ultimately her death.
No one is talking about it. My daughter fell through the cracks because no one told me.
Youth coaches in Colorado are required to tell parents if their kid gets a concussion, but a new bill crafted by Stella called Alyssa's Act would require coaches take an annual mental health education course and inform parents of potential mental health impacts following a concussion.
This bill has an opportunity to save so many children, if not just one more child.
Alyssa's little sister Emily, now 17, has been donating the food grown here to the Arvada Food Bank.
We do believe that this garden has just been blessed by her sister Alyssa.
As new life pushes through the soil, they're hoping a new law can push forward too.
I don't want any family to go through what we've gone through. And it's just a reminder that through grief, things can grow. Alyssa is still with us, her legacy is still with us, and this legislation is part of that.
Now that bill has sponsors from both parties. It's set to be discussed in the Health and Human Services Committee first after being introduced. Kyle.
When we talk about this, what age range are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking junior, middle, and high school sports, both at school and in things like club sports. So this would be a lot of kids. Of course, this is something that's gotten a lot of attention at the NFL level with CTE testing. Now they're trying to bring this down to youth level here in Colorado.
All right, Evan Krugel, thank you so much. We're back with your feedback next. This week marks 300 weeks of your Word of Thanks microgiving, 300 straight weeks of you showing us that the good in our community is more powerful than whatever negativity is on the news. This week, we're supporting Salud Family Health's Butt Savers program. At their clinics up and down the Front Range, low-income patients who can't afford co-pays for colonoscopies can get a scholarship of sorts. You scan the QR code on your screen there, text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. You can join me and a bunch of others in giving to support that life-saving work, and it truly is. It began with docs covering the cost out of their own pocket because they realized that patients were going home, not getting the care, and then they were coming back with cancer that was hard to treat. Then Butt Savers became a community-wide effort to help even more people. Salud says it performed 1,000 colonoscopies last year. That is a lot of butts saved. Michael writes, I know I have said this before, but now that you've hit 300 microgiving campaigns, can we all just say thank you again for starting this and keeping the ball rolling? Please at least allow all of us to say thank you to you and your team there at 9 News. I appreciate that, Michael. But the fact is, there's one reason alone why Word of Thanks has been going for 300 weeks, and it is because you at home are interested in giving and bettering our community through this effort, especially those giving monthly to the Word of Thanks Fund. It's become the backbone of this program that's now raising $50,000 a week. I have received very fair questions, understandable questions about whether Word of Thanks is going to continue in the future. That is something that we are working on. I will let you know, but for the time being, it continues 301 weeks next Wednesday. See you next.